I really can't stay, baby. It's cold outside. I gotta go to
Dennis,
way.
Dennis,
Way,
Dennis.
Petey.
Hey, you sound very festive right now with the holiday season, but I don't think that's the song. I don't think we should be talking about that right now.
Hey, listen. I am in the greatest Christmas mood. Do you know what kind of Christmas mood I'm in?
What kind of Christmas mood are you in?
I am in the giving Christmas mood. Santa Farrell is here, and I've got a bag full of Blue Chew, Petey.
Oh, that's what you mean by giving.
That's what I mean by giving. So,
That's a pun. You know, you get the bag full of Blue Chew, and I don't know if the bag is reference to. Anyways, go on.
so listen, guys. It's Blue Chew season. It's the holiday season. It's cold. You want to get cuddly. We here at the Wrestling Perspective, PD and myself, want to give you a free order of Blue Chew. Just give it away, PD. Santa Farrell is giving things away left and right.
Hey, Blue Chew. I mean, you give it away. It's the gift that keeps on giving. How about that, Dennis?
I like that a lot. Let me tell you a little bit about Blue Chew, PD. I know you're excited. You hear it every week. You've been hitting the head one too many times, and you forget. I'm not talking to the people because I know the people know enough about Blue Chew, but it's you I'm speaking to, PD.
No, let me hear it because I need to hear it.
First and foremost, Blue Chew is made with the same active ingredients as Cialis and that other blue pill that we love to talk about, Viagra. It's made in the United States, which makes it cheaper. You can get it online, which means there's no awkward doctor visits. You know how awkward it is when I come to your house, Petey?
Are you calling me a doctor or just I treat you like the doctor visit?
You treat me like the doctor visit. I come over and then you're like, Dennis, we're friends, put your pants back on. And then there's that awkwardness of me having to fight and wrestle up my skinny jeans. And look, there's none of that with Blue Chew because you can get it online.
Oh man, I mean, why do I have to tell you to pull up your pants when you enter my house? I don't know. Probably because you should probably stop taking Blue Chew before you come into my house. Do it before you get in the bedroom.
First and foremost, when you're at Casa Lapidi, you never know what's going to happen there. It is such a party place.
I mean, that is correct. Right now I'm in a silent room where I can actually do this podcast for a little bit before I go back to Blue Chewing it up.
With your what do you have? One of those ragers going on?
Ragers or ravers?
Yeah, rave. You're raving at your house right now, right?
It's a rage rave, whatever you want to call it.
Is like Uncle Cracker playing at your house because that guy's looking for a job?
Uncle Cracker's playing at my house. We don't take ecstasy, no, because I mean the only little pills that we take is
Blue Chew.
Blue Chew, there it is.
Plus, look, Blue Chew works way quicker than ecstasy, and it's chewable, which ecstasy's not.
And ecstasy is illegal too, so I do not partake in that.
But you can get Blue Chew online. You can go to bluechew.com. Use the promo code WPP. With that promo code, you get a free order. You just pay $5 shipping, and PD and I are happy. I did a special announcement, and I guess we'll kind of roll into this a little bit. But, the money we make, we put back into our product. Most podcasters will make a couple bucks, stick it in their pocket, and they're like Uncle Scrooge diving in their clock tower full of money and going in and out of the cash, somehow figuring out a way to like defy gravity and swimming in a sea full of change and dollar bills. Not me and you, PD. We give back into our own product.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that we want to do is make this product better any way that we can. I mean, it doesn't make you got to invest in your own product, right, Dennis?
That's right. I use it at Blue Chew Works. What I usually do is whether it's with my wife or another lady that I like just as much as her. My wife, I'm not cheesing it. I'm not fooling anybody with that one. Anyways, I'll take the Blue Chew, I'll get in the shower, I'll come out, and I'm like knocking things off the counters and the table because look, I'm ready to go.
Are you talking? With your arms and stuff like that. Okay.
Yes.
I didn't know how you were knocking things off the counter. All right. That's good that you clarified that. Good. So Blue Chew.
So look, this holiday season, don't just deck the halls. You want to deck the halls, if you know what I mean.
Perfect.
There we go. So BlueChew.com, use a promo code WPP, and everybody's happy. Petey, one more quick ad. Let's talk about whatfarapparel.com/WPP. We got a couple shirts up right now. Look, there's nothing. I see the commercials of the families out there, and they buy their families, Mazdas and Fords, and put it in the driveway. I think that is the most impersonal gift ever. There's no touch and no love to buying someone a car or a diamond ring or any of that junk, okay? They get it, they wear it, and they don't appreciate it. But do you know the one gift that you can buy someone and that they will love and appreciate way more than a car or a ring or even a trip or a vacation?
Blue Chew?
That
or
too.
What comes after Blue Chew?
It's the shirt, Petey. We're now hawking shirts.
But Blue, we should get a Blue Chew shirt. It just says, it's a blue shirt that says Chew, so I think people would get it.
Oh, I like it. On the back it says .com.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, Dennis, we have to talk about this off the air. I think we have something going on right now.
I think we just figured out a way to make us rich. But if you go to whatfarapparel.com/WPP and order yourself a Wrestling Perspective shirt, Petey and I will love you long time.
Yeah, very long time.
So go buy yourself a shirt. You know what? Nothing left here in this podcast to do, but you ready to hit the music?
Hit my music. Welcome to the Wrestling Perspective Podcast. I'm the Canadian Destroyer, Petey Williams, and he's my co-host, Dennis Farrell. Dennis, how's it going?
How's she going, eh?
I love it, man. I got you saying it now. We kind of switched things up today. It's going good, Dennis. I mean, should we reverse roles today? Should I ask you all the questions and lead this?
Let's do it. I can tell you about my time wrestling Scott Steiner and a couple good Scott Steiner stories that I have.
Which is what, 0? I don't know. Do you have any good Scott Steiner stories?
There's the time Scotty and I went to Cracker Barrel.
I think you're thinking of when I went to Cracker Barrel. With him. But...
Maybe. There's the one time where we were out and the weather was bad and he was driving and he was looking for a gym and went down the one-way road with him.
Yep, again, that was me as well. But anyways, okay, let's kick this off. If you don't have any good Scott Steiner stories that people haven't already heard, Dennis, what's on the agenda for today?
Listen, we are going to go over, and we're going to do something different in this podcast. Wrestling rankings really interest me. So I pulled up Pro Wrestling Illustrated, PWI's weekly rankings for the week ending December 6th. I want to go over them and discuss them, not really critique them, because there's no right way in today's wrestling to do a power ranking. I've always found them somewhat interesting, but controversial at the same time.
Yeah, and I remember when I was, before I got in the wrestling business, when I was a teenager, and I used to get my PWI magazines and look at these rankings and stuff, and they were almost like the holy grail to me. I'm like, this guy is actually number 2 up in line for the belt, or whatever the case may be. And they actually, I don't know what these rankings are to end the week of December 6th, so this is going to be a shock to me. I don't have the list in front of me or anything like that, so I'm interested to see what these rankings are.
That's good, because I'm looking at the Impact ones right now. We'll go over that here in a second.
Nice.
I guess one of our friends, not a friend of the show just yet, but one of our friends was recently involved in a little Twitter spat over what it takes to write a 3-hour show for WWE. Kind of, I would almost say he showed up and came to the aid of the WWE, since he was a former writer, and I'm talking about the Zombie Princess, Jimmy Jacobs. We want to talk a little bit about that, and whatever else comes to mind. Oh, and we had a question on Twitter about how do you get your abs, so I feel like I should ask you that real quick.
Yeah, just I buy them at the store like everybody else that has abs.
What store do you go to? Because
No.
I need them.
So this is what I always would say, like back at wrestling school or training or whatever, and people would come up and they knew they had to get in better shape or whatever the case may be to kind of make it as a pro wrestler. You have to kind of look the part, and they would say, "Petey, hey man, can you help me out? Like, what do you do for your arm? What do you do for your abs? What do you do for this? What do you do?" And they ramble on. I'm like, "All right, let me stop you right there. All right, okay, I'm going to tell you right now. Here's the secret. All right, so you need to go to the gym." And then I'd walk away, right? And I'd end it, and then they would be like, "Oh, I get it. You're being an a-hole there. I need to go to the gym. I get it." So I mean, that's how I usually started. But I mean, there's a lot more to it. I mean, there's so much dieting involved. Like exercising, just being consistent with both those. I know a lot of people, that aren't wrestlers and are wrestlers that they're like, they'll be good for like however many weeks or maybe it's even days. Like, oh, I'm going to get in shape, and they're really good. And they find out it's actually tough to diet and exercise consistently, and they kind of fall off. But then they're like, oh, I got to get back on the wagon and all that kind of stuff. And to be honest, me being at where I'm in my career right now, I mean, that's how I kind of am. I'm like, I can have an extra pizza, a whole pizza here or there, whatever the case may be, or a few beers here and there. But, if you really want to get in good shape, I mean, when I was in my best shape, I was like, it was like a religion to me, dieting and exercising. And that's how you got to be. I mean, genetics and youth doesn't last forever. I know the guy asking this question was probably like, yeah, I just do like 100 crunches a day, done, and you'll have abs. It's not like that. It really isn't.
Oh, so I'm up to like 6 a day.
That's good, man. So hopefully tomorrow you'll be at like 7. Are you talking about cheeseburgers or sit-ups?
Both.
Okay.
I put the cheeseburger just out of my yeah. So now I've got the ab question out of the way. I was taken to task on Twitter this weekend by the ladies of Ring of Honor women, great group of ladies who love Ring of Honor. Someone had put out a question about basically the whole elite group. If they leave, what does that do for New Japan Wrestling? And me personally, and I don't watch New Japan religiously. And I would say occasionally at best. I know a lot of the players. I watch some of the weekly highlights here and there. But in my mind, as a fringe fan, and I know that the diehard fans will see it maybe different from me, but as a fringe fan, looking at the reality of the situation, Kenny Omega leaving, you have Cody leaving, the Young Bucks leaving, New Japan. I think that leaves New Japan in a weird position here in the U.S. where they may fall to, maybe behind MLW if you were to rank the major organizations that are watched in the United States.
I mean, that's a good hypothesis, I guess you could call it. Because you would think like, all these, American darlings or whatever you want to call them, like stars are leaving, or they have the potential to leave if they haven't left yet. What's going to happen, because now it's just like Japanese guys. Not that it's just Japanese guys, but what do the Americans connect with, or whatever the case may be. But I really don't think that's the case, because like even though guys like I'll take Kenny Omega for example. Kenny Omega, super popular in Japan, and I mean, is he super popular in the U.S.? Let's really think about it. Like, if you're not like a smart mark or a diehard wrestling fan,
I think he is
like,
now.
Maybe he's getting to that point. And I'll tell you this. I'll put it this way. So, I had a conversation, and I'll leave this person unnamed, but I had a conversation with an unnamed person, and they said, if you had, let's say, in New Jersey, Philadelphia, that type New York type area there, the East Coast, where wrestling is like really diehard, and you had a merchandise table or an autograph signing table with these 3 people there: Kenny Omega, Hulk Hogan, and Stone Cold Steve Austin. 3 separate tables. Who has the longest line? All right. So that was the question. And I know what I said. He said that he feels like right now Kenny Omega would have the longest line. And I told him that he was on some serious drugs. As popular as Kenny Omega is, Stone Cold Steve Austin is going to have the longest line. But he felt like, hey, Stone Cold's been around since what? Like his popularity was like on the rise, like in the late 90s and stuff, all the way into the 2000s. A lot of people have already met him and stuff like that. Now Kenny's getting popular. That's why he'll have the longest line. I'm like, no, absolutely not. I said Stone Cold Steve Austin will have the longest line. I mean, I don't know if you agree with me, Dennis.
I kind of do, only because Stone Cold Steve Austin isn't at every signing, doesn't go to every convention. To get him at a convention or a signing is feels like a real big event for
exactly.
For any wrestling fan. Like Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan whores himself out for 50 cents, essentially.
I don't think it's 50 cents, but you see a Hulk Hogan a lot more.
He's everywhere.
Like Stone Cold.
And look, and I'm not a Hulk Hogan guy. I think the industry's passed him by. It's time for him to step aside and let someone else have some limelight. And to me, Hulk Hogan's just one of those guys that can't let go. Now, don't get me wrong. I will still look back on him with fond memories. But just like, The Undertaker and Triple H and my knock on some of these old guys that just won't go away, and good on them for getting a payday, Hulk Hogan needs to step aside. I think if he would have stepped aside 10 years ago, his legacy would have been so much bigger right now.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not that... I feel Stone Cold does it right. I mean, he has his podcast and stuff like that. But, when he retired, he retired. He didn't come back. Like, he's done wrestling. It is what it is. But going back to the original question, like, are they going to be able to connect with the American audience? Are they... I mean, that's left to be seen. I think a lot of American people know who a lot of the Japanese wrestlers are now. Like Okada and stuff, like people know. Like now he's a name. Tanahashi, he's a name, thanks to the guys like Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Cody, and all that stuff who brought the American audience over there. So now, and that's the rub that we talk about in wrestling. So will it go down? I don't think so, because when 5 guys leave the company, there's an opportunity for 5 more guys to come in to show their craft and stuff. Like I know they have a lot of good superstars. Like you got, Switchblade Jay White coming up the ranks and stuff. Kushida is like one of the top like junior heavyweights in the world right now. Like they still have a lot of good things going for them. Would it suck if they lost like, Kenny and the Young Bucks and Cody and whoever? Yeah, it would suck. But I mean, they have to move on. I mean, that's just what it is. And I think New Japan will be okay. They might not be as popular in the US, maybe not, but I still feel they'll be the number 1 company in Japan, and that's what's important to them.
Absolutely. Now, my question to you is, the Young Bucks and Kenny and all those guys go, for at least in the United States, does Impact jump them as far as maybe largest promotion or biggest American fan base, or maybe even more ratings on TV?
Like, do you think like Impact would scout them, is what you're saying?
No. Do you think Impact leaps them in as far as maybe fan involvement or fan love, I guess I would say?
Are you talking about leaping New Japan?
Yes.
Oh, that's a good question. The problem, I feel like New Japan, their TV show is on Access or something like that, which you have to have like Hero Friday, so is Pop TV. And you got to remember, like, I think right now, at least when I used to watch New Japan, maybe like a year ago or whatever the case may be, back when AJ Styles was still involved in the company, they were really behind on their tapings, like months behind. Like by the time it aired over here on that Access channel, I remember AJ was already signed with WWE. It was like WrestleMania. He's already been signed with WWE for 2 months, and they're still airing stuff from AJ Styles. And you might only get a match or two when they've had like a whole show. Like, so they don't have like a serial television show like Impact does, what the American fans are used to. So I think it's like kind of comparing apples and oranges. I think like people that want to see, oh yeah, I saw that match on pay-per-view. I want to rewatch it 2 months later, whatever the case. I can watch it now on the Access channel. With Impact, we film and then we air it right after we film, pretty much as soon as we can. So I just think it's apples and oranges. I don't think there's anything to be leaped per se.
Let me ask you this then. As far as Ring of Honor, now Ring of Honor are losing their top tag team, easily one of their top past champions in Cody Rhodes. Kenny Omega kind of popped in and out. When I think of Kenny, I think more of New Japan than Ring of Honor. Those guys leave that organization. Do you feel like Impact leaps them as far as wrestling organizations in the United States, where it would be, WWE? Maybe now it would be Impact, then Ring of Honor?
Come
on, say it.
See,
Just say it.
I'm biased towards Impact. Like, I feel like, we have a lot of great things coming. I think we're back on the map, and a lot of people are wanting to work for Impact. Do I think so? For Ring of Honor, I think they'll be totally fine without those guys. They have in the past when guys like Daniel Bryan left the company, CM Punk, Samoa Joe. They've lost all these huge talents in the past that are now huge talents in WWE or more. And they were totally fine. They built new talent. I mean, that's what Ring of Honor is great at. That's the one thing that, Ring of Honor does way better than Impact has ever done, because what Ring of Honor doesn't do, that Impact used to do a lot, and I think we're notorious for, and we're trying to get away from that, is they'll bring in Impact used to bring in ex-WWE guys, and then, they'd wrestle AJ or our top guys, but those guys would beat our top guys, which doesn't make sense in wrestling. If you go to Ring of Honor, if they bring in an ex-WWE guy, oh, no, they're not beating the top Ring of Honor guy. They're going to lose, and that's the right way to do it. That's perfect booking for Ring of Honor. I never understood why Impact didn't do that. I never understood why Impact would pay guys that didn't have a job, that got released by WWE, a lot of money. They really had nowhere to go. They were at the graces of Jeff Jarrett. Like, Jeff could have probably offered them anything, and they could have, been signed with us. So it was a different era back then. But I think Ring of Honor will be totally fine, even if half the roster left right now. They just have such a fan base, and they've been so loyal to them for so many years that they know they're going to get new stars built that they're going to be able to cheer. That's just the way their company works, and they do a great job at it.
Okay, well, let's move on then. And I think they will be all right. And
yeah, they will be.
Let me ask one more question then, and I don't know where I fall on this. Does the All Elite Wrestling automatically jump to number 2 when they start rolling with Omega and Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks? Maybe they get Jericho. Do they automatically become the number 2 organization in all of wrestling?
I'll give you a definitive answer right now. Yes. But I say yes temporarily. So, well, maybe not temporarily. I'll say a tentative yes, because there will be so much hype. Look at the All In show. It was so much hype around it. So they're taking that hype. Now, let's say if they have a wrestling organization where all those guys are like, hey, we're going to start our own wrestling organization, which a lot of people are speculating is going to happen. So if they do that, there's going to be so much hype behind it. So many people are going to tune into that first episode. The ratings are going to be like the biggest ratings ever. All right. So what they have to do is not mess it up. They have to be able to have a perfect show, their first show, to get people to say, oh, I want to watch that show again next week, and I want to tell a friend about it that they need to watch this show next week and how awesome it is. So that's what they have to do. If they blow it on their first one, and I'll give you another example, Impact, okay, back in the Hulk Hogan era, when they switched to Monday nights, so much hype. They're like, we're going, I think at the time Raw was maybe 2 hours, like 9 to 11, and then our show was 8 to 10. So, we had the first hour. I don't remember the whole specifics, but we were going to go head-to-head live show with Raw. And our ratings did jump. Like, they jumped huge. I mean, they weren't, at the time, anywhere near WWE's, but our ratings jumped huge. And a lot of people were thinking, like, initially, like, oh, man, this could be a new Monday Night War. This is what we've been waiting for. This is what the wrestling fans have been asking for. But the show didn't deliver. And then the next week, they saw the ratings decline. And then the next week, they saw the ratings decline. They didn't deliver. And then they had to, I don't know how long it was, but they removed themselves from Monday. And they're like, oh, we can't compete. This is killing us financially. We're going to go back to whatever, Thursdays. So, yes, to answer your question, tentatively, they have the opportunity to be the number 2.
You don't think fans...
They have to deliver.
You don't think fans will give them a pass for the first X amount of weeks or months while they get it going? Or do you think they'll be...
It might be. Yeah, it might be the first few. But, I mean, they just have to continuously deliver, which I have no doubt that they will. But, I mean, and this will go into probably other things that we're going to talk about writing a 3-hour show and stuff like that. These guys, phenomenal wrestlers, some of the best in the world. All right? And people will tune in for wrestling, but people need the emotion behind it. They need to have the storyline. They need to have something that is going to draw them in next week, cliffhanger, whatever the case may be, other than like, oh, they're going to have 2 awesome wrestlers are going to wrestle each other with no backstory. Sometimes that's the worst. Well, sometimes people want to see 2 like okay wrestlers wrestle each other with a lot of emotion and huge backstory. They're like, I got to see this match, rather than 2 of the best in the world wrestle. Just to wrestle, because they're awesome.
It's funny you bring that cliffhanger thing up, because earlier this week I sent you a text and just said, outside of the Killer Cross angle, which I thought could have been a little bit longer, Impact needs a good summer cliffhanger story where it starts at the beginning of the summer and maybe leads into like your Slammiversary or, your big... Bound for Glory, the unmasking of X wrestler. We have not seen that, and it seems like so many years of a whodunit or who is he, and make it last for so long. I think the way the Impact tapes, they might be one of the only people that can really pull off a long-winded storyline like that. That I think wrestling fans just are itching for something that lasts more than 3 weeks. I love wrestling. I love WWE. I love good WWE, and I love bad WWE. I love it. But my only argument with them is I can't get invested in the storyline that switches over every 3 weeks. I want something. Yeah. I want something long that takes me on. And it might sound silly, but like an emotional roller coaster. It needs its ups and downs, and who done it and who is he. And I want it to make me want to tune in every week. And this is where Impact needs to pick up.
I think this is where every wrestling company needs to pick up. Like, just the way we view, as people now, we view television is, I remember back in the day, we watched TV shows that weren't, I call them serial dramas. Okay. A serial drama is where like you got, 10, 12, 15 episodes in a season, and they take you through that roller coaster like you're talking about. And at the end of it, they either reveal something in the season finale, or they cliffhanger you. So you have to you got to wait a whole year to tune into, season 2. But, before serial dramas were around, because I mean, that all started probably in late 90s, early 2000s. I mean, it was like, people were watching like NCIS, where like, okay, they lead you through the emotional roller coaster during the single episode, but nothing really carries on to the next episode. It's going to be a whole new thing, a whole new problem, a whole new, thing to solve and stuff. So I think, the way we watch TV now, we have Netflix, we binge watch seasons and stuff. They take us through that roller coaster that you're talking about. Like, that's great stuff. And I think wrestling needs to adopt to that. I really do. Like, I agree with you, Dennis. Like, that Killer Cross angle, I really enjoyed it, because even though we filmed it in one set of TV tapings, like, I think it lasted maybe like, I don't know, 6 weeks, maybe 8. But we filmed all that like in a span of a week. And and people are asking like, who's this guy leaving everybody laying? What's going on? And then we have the big reveal, and people are like, oh, awesome! It's Killer Cross. We love it, And I agree. We do need more of that. Now, if we get more of that, now is it saturating? Like, oh, here we go, another whodunit or another. We've seen this song and dance before.
But have we?
So
When's the last time we've seen it? It's been years since we've seen a real. And look, it may have been done on the Indies, or I might have missed it on Ring of Honor. Hey, look, I get it. If it's been done there and I missed it, I apologize. But something that gets buzz and gets people talking right now and today, I think Impact can do it.
Yeah, and I mean, currently have one going on that's been going on for quite some time, is the Scarlett Bordeaux one. Like, she's on a talent search or whatever. What's going to happen with that? That's been going on for quite some time. So people are like, okay, pick me. We're getting fan involvement and stuff. So, and we did a who done it. I think that was last summer, maybe last spring. So maybe we're due for another storyline like that. You just can't do it like stop one and then do another one.
That's why I said summer.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Dennis. I love that kind of stuff. Like when they had the whole who killed Vince McMahon, I was really interested in that storyline. I'm like, man, somebody killed Vince McMahon. They're gonna do a who done it. I'm like, this is great. I mean, obviously it's fake. He's not really dead, but I'm like, I'm intrigued. Like, what's gonna go on? And then, then Benoit, the whole Benoit thing happened, so they kind of just let that storyline go. Or even like with the Hornswoggle story with who's Vince McMahon's kid, and they had a lot of tension with Ken Kennedy, and I like that kind of stuff. It makes me want to like I gotta tune in next week. I mean, we need more of that in wrestling. I agree.
All right, let's move on. Over at Pro Wrestling Sheet, they picked up this story, and look, Ryan Satang, good friend of the show. He's covered a lot of our stuff. I'm a big fan of Pro Wrestling Sheet. He does a story talking about basically Brian Alvarez of Wrestling Observer basically tweets out, let's see here, shared an article on this week's Raw ratings saying the numbers were embarrassing. Writing a 3-hour wrestling TV show every week is not blanking hard. Now, let's see here. It started with Brian Alvarez shared an article talking about how the numbers were embarrassing. Jimmy Jacobs replies, sorry, writing a 3-hour wrestling show every week is effing hard. Jacobs replied. Then another fan pointed out the repetitive matches on all sides. Let's see here. He wrote, I can only speak of my experience in those experiences. I found writing a wrestling TV show isn't an easy task. Thanks to all engaged in meaningful dialogue with me. I love the passion, Jimmy Jacobs tweets out. Let's talk about a 3-hour Raw, because I'm on the side of you're going to get good shows, you're going to get bad shows. You have every right in the world to complain about it. You have every right in the world to watch or stop watching. If you're going to watch it, enjoy it. I love wrestling. Guys, wrestling reviewers on Twitter or YouTube or even podcasts, they review Raw and SmackDown like it's a melodrama, like it's a Shakespearean play. I like to sit down and enjoy it for what it is. And if you can do that, Raw's not so bad every week.
Yeah, I mean, I can watch, I haven't in a while, but I can watch an episode of Raw or SmackDown and be unbiased. I mean, maybe because I'm a wrestler, but I'm just like, hey, I'm just going to watch. If I don't like this, I'm going to shut it off. And maybe I'll watch the show and then see what people say about it. I'm like, wow, they didn't like that? I guess I could see why they didn't like that. And then I start like analyzing it in my head. And so, I remember when I watch wrestling, it takes me back to when I was a kid, 5, 6, 7 years old. I'm watching wrestling. And I wasn't like critiquing it. I was just there, kind of being mindless, brainless, just watching the show that I love to watch. But it is tough writing not only a 3-hour show, but like a 1 hour. So I responded to one of those because I know that Bucks put like 15 minutes is tough to write every week or whatever, because they write their being the elite, and filming all that stuff. And I know like that's tough. And I put like, when I did a 7-second video on Vine, that was tough. Like, just to come up with everything and all that kind of stuff. But Jimmy Jacobs is absolutely right. Like, first off, they're not going back down to 2 hours, like he said, because the money's there. They get paid a lot more to do a 3-hour show than a 2-hour show. Okay. But, like, you have to think about writing a show. Okay. I'll take a show that, like, just a movie that maybe a lot of our listeners haven't seen. Maybe they have, I don't know, but a great show. The Shawshank Redemption. Okay, so I could tell you right now, and this isn't a spoiler alert because it doesn't matter what happens at the end. Andy Dufresne, he escapes from prison. Okay, now it's like a 3-hour movie, but why do we care? Why did a convict, falsely accused, but a convict escapes from prison? Why do we care about that? It's from what happened the 3 hours prior of the show that kind of get there. So when they write like a storyline, they're like, okay, this is our end product. We want, Daniel Bryan to win the belt. Okay. What are we going to do to get there? What are we going to do to fill in? Now, Raw's a little bit different because they go live every single week. So they might write something with a end picture in mind. And they may have like a 5-week span of kind of what they're going to do. After the first week, it flops. They're like, oh, we can't go on with this, man. Like, did you see the reaction? Like, man, people aren't buying this, whatever. And they kind of have to not rewrite, but like move it in a different direction in week 2, or maybe try to get the fans back into it. Like that. They did a lot of that with Roman Reigns. Like, how do we get the fans behind him so that we could give them that payoff that we want? All that kind of stuff. It's different when we write Impact, because Impact, they sit down, they write the show. Okay, we're going to do this. Okay, we got 4 weeks to sell this pay-per-view or whatever. What are we going to do on weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4? Okay, week 1, we got to do this. Okay, can't do the same thing in week 2, so what do we do that's different? Okay, sit-down interview. Okay, great, we'll do that, talking about this. Week 3, we're going to do maybe have a match with this guy. So you kind of plan it out. And then it is what it is, because then we film it all in a couple days before it airs. So we don't have that luxury that, Raw has, where it's live. We see how the fans react. And like, okay, we have a week to do rewrites or whatever. We have literally hours after the show before we have to go and, film the next episode pretty much. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a lot tougher than people think. I mean, I feel anybody can write wrestling, but can anybody like really write good wrestling? Yeah. And if you look at one of Jimmy Jacobs' tweets as well, with all the people involved and stuff, like there's egos in wrestling, right? If you tell, I don't know who's I'll just pick a name of a hat. If you tell Kevin Owens, like, hey Kevin, you're gonna be feuding with Braun Strowman, I don't know, and you're gonna cut this promo, and we need you to say this, and then Kevin Owens goes, dude, my character wouldn't say that. I don't want to say that. Okay, now we have a problem. Now you're trying to convince Kevin Owens that he has to say it. And he's fighting you back, like, no, can we say it like this instead? No, we really need just. And then now there's a compromise, and this like is a battle all day long, maybe potentially. And I'm hypothetically saying Kevin Owens. It could be anybody. It could be a Daniel Bryan and anybody. So now you have a conflict and stuff, and you're doing like little tweaks and stuff like that. And this is one segment on a 3-hour show. So if this happens in every single segment, this creative battle, I mean that's chaotic right there. It'd be great if all the wrestlers were robots and you're like, this is what you're going to say. Go out there and say your lines. Okay, yep, no problem. And it comes off perfectly. That's not pro wrestling. It isn't. I mean, I know that's what the fans want to believe what it is, but it's not. I remember I've went against Vince Russo when he wanted me to say stuff. He wanted me to refer to myself as Little Petey Pump. And I'm like, dude, you know what that sounds like? I'm like, I don't want to call myself Little Petey Pump. I'm like, that sounds ridiculous. And then he says, you got to say it, bro. You got to say it. And I'm like, I don't want to say it. It's the only time I ever said I didn't want to say something.
Did you still say it?
So then I thought about it all day. And he's like, I'm just telling you, you have to say it. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, all right, well, I said, Vince, I got the line in. He says, what is it? I said, when I go out there and confront Scott, I'm going to say, how did I say it?
Mm.
I'm trying to think of how I put it. I said, you may think that I'm, you know, little Petey Pump to your big Papa Pump, but I'm the Maple Leaf Muscle, blah, 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 blah. Definition of definition, whatever. So I got the line in there. So that's what they wanted. And so the commentators could say, like, did he just refer to himself as little Petey Pump? Well, I didn't really, but okay, if that's what you want to say, sure.
Okay.
But, I mean, there's a lot. Jimmy Jacobs is so right. There's so much that goes into it.
One day we should get Jimmy Jacobs on the podcast.
I don't think, you know what? I do want Jimmy on the podcast. He already said he would do it.
Here's the thing. I'm in a car riding with him for 4 hours, and he is a talker. And it's not bad.
Yes.
But he would be a good guest for you and I to nerd out with over lattes and vegan wraps. But he would have to be in the room with us to pull the podcast off.
I agree with you. Yeah, because I mean he feeds off energy. He's a great talker. Great when he analyzes stuff. Like he's just I love Jimmy so much. Like I learn so much from him when we sit there with the shows and stuff. Like he's taught me so much and everything. And he's so good at like just what he does, like the promos and storylines and everything. He's so good. But a lot of the times, like he talks really fast, and sometimes when you're kind of chewing on what he just said to you, and you're thinking about it, he's already moving on to the next thing. Mm-hmm. Like, and if you can't keep up with his thought process, that's your fault, not his. So, I mean, that's how quick his mind works.
All right, let's wrap this up with a little Pro Wrestling Illustrated PWI rankings. This is for December 6th, 2018. I want to start out with their overall top 10 wrestlers. And this will be part of my question. And then we'll jump down and just talk about the Impact rankings since you're there. But overall top 10, Brock Lesnar, Daniel Bryan, Seth Rollins, Shinsuke Nakamura, AJ Styles, Tomas Ciampa.
Tommaso Ciampa,
yeah. Ciampa. Ciampa. I don't know why I call him Ciampa. Johnny Impact. We'll stop there.
So is this for just overall in the world kind of deal, like in the U.S. or something like that?
Yes.
So I don't think that was 10. What was Johnny Impact at?
I stopped at 7.
Okay.
Because here's my reason. And here's my question. Brock Lesnar, absentee champion, although he does hold probably the biggest belt in pro wrestling right now. Does his lack of TV time still deserve him to be number 1?
Whew. That's a good question. Well, here's why I would say he's number 1. So he just fought Daniel Bryan at Survivor Series and beat him. Mm-hmm. So just based on that, you had champion versus champion. Who was the better champion? Brock Lesnar won. Okay, he's number 1. Daniel Bryan's number 2. I mean, that's as clear cut as it can be with that. So like you look at it like UFC, right? Like if he beat that one guy, then that means this guy is number 1, this guy's number 2. I mean, that's just the way it is. It doesn't matter how many fights you had or anything like that. It's, hey, you lost and you won, so you're number 1 and you're not.
Okay. I kind of agree. Next week, though, I think if Daniel wrestles and Brock is still MIA, Daniel should be ahead of Brock Lesnar at that point. I don't think that match will give you a more than a 2-week timetable of being over the other guy if you don't wrestle.
I don't know. I don't necessarily. I don't know. I don't think so. I think, like, as long as they're both champions, Brock will be 1 because Brock has a victory over him. I mean, if we're going off win-losses, which, in this wrestling world is supposed to count. So Brock has a win over Daniel Bryan. I mean, it doesn't matter if Daniel Bryan has 50 matches. He still hasn't beaten the guy that he lost to.
All right.
That's the way I see it.
Seth Rollins is number 3 as the Intercontinental Champion. Here's where I want to start asking you questions. Does Shinsuke Nakamura at number 4, AJ Styles at number 5, who doesn't even hold a belt, deserve to be over another champion for another TV show like Johnny Impact at number 7? Although you look in the top 10, Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton is 9 and 10, but there's no Jay Lethal, who is the Ring of Honor champion. But should the Ring of Honor champion, should Johnny Impact be over an AJ Styles or a U.S. Shinsuke Nakamura if they're the champions of a said organization?
I think that if this were maybe, I don't know, like 10 years ago, let's say, maybe even shorter than that, like maybe 6 years ago, then yes. Right now, everybody knows Impact's in a rebuilding phase. We're on the upswing again after we've had a big slope down. So if this were 8 years ago, yes, absolutely, Johnny Impact should be like 3. But right now where we're at, I'm glad that actually surprised that somebody non-WWE right now is making the top 10. I honestly am surprised.
See, I look at this and I think Johnny Impact probably should be ahead of AJ Styles. As great as Styles has been, I think Ciampa and Impact should both be ahead of him since they are champions of their respective brands.
See, AJ, the tough one is with the AJ, but AJ just lost the belt like a month ago, let's say.
Okay.
And he held the belt for like, he broke some records, like 370, I don't even know the amount of days. Like, he was over a year. Like, and he's beaten those guys like Nakamura, who I think is like number 4, right?
Nakamura is number 4.
Yeah, he every time they step in the ring, AJ's beat him. So to have AJ up there, that kind of makes sense because he is like still currently the number 1 contender for Daniel Bryan's belt. So I can see where they're going with that. Like, if I'm looking at it from a logical standpoint, yeah, Ciampa, they're showing that he's up there, but he's in let's call NXT what it is. It's literally a farm system. So it's good that he's even on the top 10. I'm actually surprised with that. I thought when you read this top 10, it was really going to be like the 2 heavyweight champions, the 2 intercontinental champions, or whatever, intercontinental and U.S. champion, and then a bunch of number 1 contenders that were all main roster guys. That's what I thought was going to happen. So I'm surprised that there's non-main roster guys on there. I really am.
Let's move down to Impact before we wrap up this podcast and just talk a little bit about our big announcements that we've had rolling out in a couple days. Impact Wrestling. Here's Impact Wrestling's top 10-ish. Johnny Impact at number 1, champion. Brian Cage at number 2. Mm-hmm. Ethan Page at number 3.
Okay.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, so I don't know where we're at with the TV tapings right now. What has aired and what hasn't. But he has, I believe, some good victories. I can't give anything away, but if you don't know, he has victories coming up and stuff, and he'll be in a marquee match. So number 3. 3 might be a little high. Let me see who else is on the list.
Pentagon Jr.
I would put him maybe at a 3, I would say.
Then Moose.
I would put Moose in front of Ethan Page as well.
Killer Cross.
Again, I think he has 1 defeat, and that was against the heavyweight champion. So I would almost put Killer Cross. Oh, man. So I would say number 1 and 2 is correct. Penta kind of went down a little bit just because he's more in the tag picture right now. So I might put Cross as like a 3. 3 and 4, Cross and Moose. Penta at 5. Still putting Ethan Page down a little bit.
Okay. All right. Eli Drake.
I
think that's good for him.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair for him, yeah.
Sami Callihan.
Oh, yes. Sammy just beat Brian Cage, too. He pinned him. Man, I might put him a little bit higher too. I would put him higher than Ethan Page as well.
All right, Matt Sydal.
Okay.
Rich Swan.
Mm-hmm.
And Phoenix.
Whew. See, Phoenix, I wish I knew how they were judging this. Like, if they're based on win-loss, maybe...
Isn't he banged up too?
Phoenix?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard, and this was after our last tapings, that he took the rest of the year off. But I heard he's also going to be good to go for our, January homecoming pay-per-view. So, and I know he's in a match. I don't know if they haven't announced yet, but he'll be in a match at the homecoming pay-per-view. Yeah, I wouldn't. Man, I wonder why they put Ethan Page so high. Maybe he's undefeated for all I know. Maybe he's never lost yet, and that's why they put him up so high. But I mean, I wouldn't have. I mean, I like Ethan Page, but just based on what he's done so far, I wouldn't put him that high.
Okay. Let's wrap this thing up. As we said at the beginning of the podcast, we put whatever money we make after we pay off all of the bills, which is actually pretty expensive to run this podcast. You would be pretty shocked. But anytime we find a way to get out of the red, we take that money and invest it back. We created a small little network for some podcasting friends, Wrestling Perspective Network. Just go to iTunes and Stitcher, look for it. There's a lot of good podcasts on there. Revisionist Booking is on there. We're going to have a Total Divas review show on there, Petey.
What?
Yeah.
That's exciting.
I was excited about it.
You know what? This is who we need. My wife, like the only wrestling she watches, and she probably only watched season 1, maybe 2, is the Total Divas.
Do you know what you should do?
We should get her as a guest on the review, hear what she has to say.
Oh my gosh, because I've never watched a single episode of it. So
Neither have I.
So for her to talk to me like Total Divas is legit, I would geek out.
Well, the thing is, she's big into like the Kardashians, like keeping up with the Kardashians, which I make fun of her for. But she's like, "You're a professional wrestler. I mean, like, come on now."
Pete,
I'm like, you're right.
Pete,
what?
Here's what you need to do. You need to talk her into watching Total Divas with a pen and a paper and writing what she likes in her critiques.
I should then give you the cliff notes or whatever.
No, and then she comes on the show and talks to us about it.
I thought you wanted her to do your research. Yeah, she would be down for that. Like, I said, how do you watch this? I'm like, you. I shouldn't say hate wrestling, but I'm like, you have no interest in wrestling. She's like, there's no wrestling in this. She's like, this is all drama. It's like, I look at it almost like a poor woman's, whatever you want to call it. Like a poor man's Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Like, it's that form of thing, like that reality show. And I tell her, I always tell her how fake reality shows are, because I've been a part of a few. And like I think I've been a part of one on True TV, one on MTV, and
wait, what reality shows have you been on?
I was on what's the one on True TV? It was about security guards kicking people out of events.
What? How do I not know this?
What was the show called? I was only on like an episode.
So?
Well, this is how fake they are. I'll tell you right now. So MTV Made, okay, that show Made, back when the Motor City Machine Guns were the first wrestlers to actually do a Made, and the premise of the show is, they pick this person and he really wants to be a pro wrestler, so they're going to hire pro wrestlers to train him and all that kind of stuff, and then at the end of the episode, he's going to be a pro wrestler. They do it with people wanting to be like cheerleaders or whatever their dream is, okay? Like these kind of obscure type occupations. So I meet this kid. This kid's name is Chris, and he's like 16. And the reason why I meet him is because I was the head trainer at the Can-Am Wrestling School where Scott is, and that's where they train the kid. So they did a lot of the training and stuff like that, and they did a lot of the filming. They had a couple guys on the film crew there. And then this is how I knew how fake it was. We were over at Belleville. Remember the Diamond back there?
Yes.
We were filming something over there because that's where his first match is going to be. And I think they had a wrestling ring set up in there at the time, and in the basement there. And the producers or directors or whatever, they tell the Machine Guns like, hey, yeah, this new wrestling gear that he has, this is going to be, you know, the episode or whatever, the time where you actually present him with this wrestling gear. And we're like, oh, okay, great, let's do that. So they get it, and they're like, yeah, we'll have him standing right there. He doesn't know yet, right, that this kid. And they come up and then present it to him. Okay, so they film this, right? And they're like, hey, Chris, yeah. He's like, hey, I got this wrestling gear for you. It's going to be great. It's going to match ours. And Chris is like, oh, my God. And it was like an authentic like surprise. And, you know, he was very thankful and grateful and all that kind of stuff. And the director goes, all right, great. Okay, guys, can you go back there and present it to him again? I just have to get it from this angle. And I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, like, all right. And he's like, I'll act surprised again. Just like you did. It was great. Just do that. And it's like, oh. So, I mean, you know, it's partially real because he didn't know it was coming. But, like, at the same time, like, yeah, we have to film that from a different angle. We only have one camera here, and we got to film it from a different angle. So, I mean, that's how it is. And I wish I could remember the show I was on. It was called, it was something with security guards.
I wish you could, too. I want to Google it and watch you. Because I didn't know you did something like this.
Yeah, it was on True TV. What was it called? Like, it was like
Confessions of a Mall Security Guard.
I don't know. It was these two. All I had to do was, I was down in Albuquerque working for Lucha Libre USA, and they're like, yeah, this kid, you know, you walk down the ramp, he's gonna get in your face, he's gonna be right here, and then he's gonna give you a push, right, and then you push him back, and then. We'll kick him out. I'm like, okay, cool, right? So we do that, and then when we're in the ring, this is when we're filming multiple shows. So then I think the next time I went out to the ring during commercial break, my tag team partner RJ Brewer, he starts talking on the mic, you know, healing on the crowd or whatever. And the producer of the show said, yeah, right here, the guy's gonna be sitting right here. Okay, so make sure you point at him. We never even met this guy. Make sure you point at him and you're addressing him, and he's gonna be all like. Getting like, you know, really flustered and all that kind of stuff. Then this is what they tell us, he's going to hop the rail. When he hops the rail to try to get in the ring, we're going to tackle him. I'm like, okay, great. We don't have to do anything. Okay, this is awesome. So we're looking for this guy. This guy's going nuts. And we're like, all right, that must be the guy, right? So this guy, you know, not to badmouth him, but he's kind of out of shape, Dennis. Okay. I mean, you're in good shape compared to this guy. Let me just say that.
I feel good now.
Yeah. So this guy tries to hop over the guardrail. Okay. Can't make it over. So we're sitting there, you know, still talking to him like, yeah, you piece of crap, whatever we're saying, right? And then the guardrail goes up to this wall. So he's thinking maybe his super athletic body is going to try to get through the guardrail on the wall. Obviously, he's not going to fit through there. I don't even know if my 2-year-old could fit through there. So that doesn't work for him, right? And we're still sitting there with our, you know, just like hanging out like, is this guy going to come over the guardrail?
Thinking it's
so he
fake.
Can't make it. He can't make it over. He can't find a way to get towards the ring, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're still just jaw-jacking, right? So what he's going to do is he stands up on a chair, okay, next to the guardrail, and I'm guessing in his mind what he's thinking through all the athletic training he's had in his life, he's just going to jump over the guardrail. But instead, he jumps over the guardrail, or jumps towards the guardrail, crotches himself on the guardrail, and then gingerly, slowly falls into, like, you know, this side. So he actually got over, but then his pants, you could totally see his butt because his pants fall off at the same time. So now he's on the ground, right? And I'm like, oh my God. Like, we're like trying not to laugh in the ring. So he's trying to get up off the ground. He's pulling his pants up. He takes like 2 steps towards the ring, and then he gets like demolished and tackled by these guys as if we were in any trouble at all. I don't even think this guy would be able to make it in the ring. So we knew that was all happening. Once again, fake. But, you know, I mean, I tell my wife all the time, reality show's fake. And she's like, no, it's not. They're real. But she messes with me, too.
Oh, I hope she thinks Total Divas is real. I want her to do please ask her. Even if she wants to, like, write down her favorite Total Diva moments of the month and then come on and talk about them.
Well, I think I saw part of one episode. I sat down with her because she's watching it. And I think, like, Natalia was on the phone. She got in a car accident or something. And she was freaking out on the phone because they were saying they were doing drug tests that day. And some of the other divas played a joke on her saying they put marijuana in her brownies, maybe. I think something like that. So she's thinking she's going to get drug tested. and she's freaking out because she's going to fail and she's going to get fired and stuff. All while the cameras are watching her do this. Like, if this was a real thing, they would probably shut off the cameras and be like, hey, man, we got to call Vince, or we got to call, talent relations director, man. Like, she's confessing to doing, like, are you kidding me? Like, how could she not know this is real, like, or fake? Like, I don't know. But, that's the glory of entertainment. It's entertainment.
All right. And finally, our second bit of good news, and I've spammed it quite a bit. It feels nice. Look, you're an Impact wrestler on TV. You're important. I have recently had a bit of a downstroke in life, which just comical at best. But things have finally turned around, PD. I'm really excited. You and I, well, here's the way. I'm going to tell the people the truth. So we are going to be doing a pre-recorded 1-hour radio show for SB Nation. It's going to air on roughly 75 to 80 different markets all over the United States. 94.1 in Houston, Pittsburgh 540, WWCS, the Horn of Austin, Mile High Sports Radio in Denver, Dallas, and a couple other markets are the ones we know off the top of our head. So the way it's going to be, because I don't know when I have to submit it or when it's going to be, but it's an hour show, and a lot of people are like, is it going to be like the podcast? Is it not? It'll be me probably doing a Raw SmackDown recap, and then I will cut to an interview you and I do that week, whether I have to shave it down or not to fit into the radio. So you will still be part of the radio show.
Oh, I mean, well, that's cool. And maybe I'll have guest appearances too. Maybe I'll actually end up watching a Raw or SmackDown. And if you invite me on, I could give my 2 cents as well. And if that fits in, like we can also clip up this show
and
put some clips in there. Yeah,
that's part of my planning. Is that I want it to feel like the podcast, but you and I have different schedules. And sometimes it's tough to even sit down to do an hour together. So to ask you to do a whole nother show is a bit ludicrous in our timetable. So I'm going to do a little, improv as to how I cut the show up and put it together. You will be way more hands-off on the radio version as you are on the podcast, but you will still be represented on the radio version.
Yeah, and still fully support the radio version of it. And, I do strongly believe this radio version of the Wrestling Perspective podcast, or Wrestling Perspective, I should say. It's not going to be a podcast. It's going to be a radio show.
Yeah.
It's going to go very well. And it's just going to mean more great things for the Wrestling Perspective podcast version.
Yes. We've got a lot of questions. Does that mean we're going to stop the podcast? No. It actually just means we're going to take the podcast and put it on radio, essentially. There'll be a different version of it. It might be me doing a little monologue at the beginning and then cut into some Petey and I. But the nothing's changing with the podcast, if that's what you're questioning, which I've got, believe it or not, a lot of people that are like, does this mean you're done with the podcast? How do I listen if I can't listen to the podcast? Podcast is not going anywhere. Nothing.
Nope. Now we just have what's that called? Not a syndicated show.
We are nationally syndicated.
When you have two shows,
simulcast.
I don't know what it's called.
Simulcast.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good job, Dennis.
You're welcome. But we are nationally syndicated too.
Awesome. That's even better syndication.
Yeah, I'm a little excited. Things hopefully are turning around, at least career-wise for me. So it's made me feel pretty good, and I'm hoping this lasts more than 3 months before they catch on to us.
I think it'll. This is going to be good, Dennis. Whether it lasts 3 months, 3 days, or 3 years, it's going to be a fun experience, and something that you've never done before. We've never done before. I haven't, so I'm looking forward to it. And I'm just a tiny little speck, small part of it. And I'm looking forward to it.
You're way more than a speck. I mean, you're the one that goes out and gets the interviews, and those interviews are the one that's going to be on the radio, which it's an hour long, which means it's about 41 to 45 minutes of content with commercial breaks. So, most of our interviews are 20 minutes anyway, so you're half the show to begin with.
Hey, this is what I'm hoping comes of it. You become a big star out of this, and I could like ride your coattails. Like that's what I'm hoping for.
You
And I'm
know,
like, Dennis, don't forget about me, man. Like, hey.
there used to be a time when there were people that rode my coattails, so it's going to be nice to not have to be a coattail rider anymore because it's kind of weird.
Hey, you're equal to me, buddy.
only on the bike.
In all aspects, you're equal to me, man.
So I appreciate it, but this would not have happened without you guys in the Blue Chew. So to keep us on the radio, go to bluechew.com, use the promo code WPP. Thank you guys. This is this week's show. Pete, any promoting on your end?
Just the big homecoming pay-per-view coming up on January 6th, I believe it is. It's the Sunday, first Sunday of January.
That's when the show debuts.
The TV tapings. What's that?
That's when the show debuts, January 6th, SB Nation.
Oh, man. When I'm all right, so we got that going on. The day after, we're also gonna be filming in Nashville, and then we head over to Mexico City that Friday and Saturday. So we're kind of breaking up the tapings. And then after that, I believe our next set of tapings is back in Vegas in February, on the long weekend in February, which I think is like Martin Luther King weekend-ish area. Same with Valentine's Day. That's where we'll be.
Can you confirm whether you're going to be in Nashville or not?
I cannot. I had a conversation with Scott Demore today. It's going to depend on some finagling, I guess you could say. It's still up in the air, I guess you could say. I'm still waiting to hear confirmation. So yeah, that's where we're at right now.
All right, guys. WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com. You will go be able to listen to this. I'm sure there'll be a link to the radio version of the podcast. We will eventually this week or so put up links and maybe even a media player to the network so you can get a different tone. These are podcasters I love and I'm fans of. So go support those guys. And by the way, you can, if you're listening to this for the first time, you can go to WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com and there are pictures of like iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play. You can click them and subscribe to whatever you listen to your podcast on the most. So thank you guys so much. Petey, I'll see you next week.
All right, man.